Hey Scorpio, welcome to your December 2016 love reading. It's Raina here, and I just want to say very briefly that for the first week of the month, Venus, the goddess of love and beauty, is going to be in your third house of communication. So that might be a situation where you meet somebody over the internet or something where you're just like back and forth, back and forth. The other thing too is that you might meet somebody in your local environment because the third house also rules your local area. And then Venus goes into Aquarius on the 7th of December, and that is your fourth house of home and family. So again, some people may go home for Thanksgiving, whatever. Thanks. What am I talking about? See, I'm doing this on November 1st, so I'm thinking of Thanksgiving, which is an American holiday for those of you who are wondering. I should have said like Christmas or something, or whatever. You know that we have holidays in December in some parts of the world. So you may be going home during those times, and you may, either reconnect with somebody from your hometown, or you could meet somebody in that environment. And so, Venus in each house gives a different slant on where this might happen. So, just something to consider. And as I put out these cards, I just want to also state, for people that may be wondering about, my personal slant on love readings, is that these are intended for people that are struggling in their relationships, either struggling to meet somebody or struggling within certain situations within the relationship. So if you have a wonderful relationship, you don't really need to be watching love readings, right? And if you have a tendency to do because you're kind of afraid that the other shoe is going to drop, then that's something to look at, because you're almost like, it's like predictive programming. You're programming yourself for the relationship to falter. And that's kind of like an ingrained, which one is it? Attitude, right? Wow, this is pretty intense, so far. So, as I say, I'm dealing with people that are having issues in relationships. So, hopefully, you'll understand the difference. And the other thing, okay, so I've put out all the cards. The other thing I want to say, Scorpio, is that I am not one of those people who just believes in, okay, this is going to happen and that's going to happen. Because first of all, I don't think that, the future is set in stone. So I think that that kind of attitude promotes passivity with the people who are watching, and that's the last thing I want to do. But the other thing is that I believe that we have to, improve ourselves. And we can't sit around waiting for other people to change and improve their lives. And I believe that once you change, that you change everything around you. Now, whether that means that you will stay with that person, I can't say that. But I do believe that everyone must tend to their own garden, or tend their own garden, or however you say it, and not, try to dictate to other people, even if it's somebody you're married to, what they are supposed to do. You tend to your own garden, you weed your garden, and if you decide, I'm not saying you should never tell anybody, what you're unhappy about, but if you're going to always put the onus on other people, the burden on them to fulfill you, then you're going to also give them your power. And so they will determine whether or not you're happy. And that doesn't seem like a very good scenario to me. You know, that's just my personal take on it. So in any case, the overall theme is the Nine of Wands. So you may have your guard up about some person. Now, we can also go the route of saying this is a fire sign, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. I don't think it's specifically assigned to one fire sign, but in any case, you know, if I were to bet on it, I would probably say it was a Leo, just because of, you know, it seems like that is a common combo with Leo, with Scorpios and fire signs. But whatever it is, you may, when I see that card, I have different feelings about it, because for some of you, you may have every reason in the world to be wary of this person. But for others of you, this may be a habit of yours, which is to put up those walls, and then that dooms a relationship. So it can go either way. It could be your deal where you're doing certain things that sabotage the relationship, or they are. And as I've said a gazillion times, you know, I think that Scorpio does tend to put up those fortresses because, you know, of abandonment issues, because of need of power. And I'm not talking about just controlling other people, but that feeling that of being invulnerable and kind of demonstrating it to other people, things like that. Now, in the past position, we have the Nine of Swords, which is a card of anxiety. You know, I love the Morgan Greer deck, truly. But one thing, there are like a few cards that I think are not really indicative of what the definition is, and I would say this is one of them. Now, it's true that this is like showing somebody who's bound, but this almost reminds me of the Eight of Swords. And so I wish they would have had more of a, you know, a sign of the insomnia or the anxiety that I, you know, remember from the Rider-Waite deck. But, so the Nine of Swords is that kind of sense of staying up at night, worrying about a situation. And of course, this is a love reading, so it would be regarding that person and that situation. So, the common, in a relationship, the common anxiety inducing experiences are worrying about somebody cheating and worrying about, you know, if they have left already, and you're like kind of like, maybe this is somebody has left, and now you're kind of, all your defenses are really just like, you know, you're like Fort Knox, you know, in terms of defenses. One thing that I want to say about that anxiety is that if you find that a relationship is giving you anxiety, either if you're in the relationship and you're afraid of it going away, or if the relationship has ended and you're feeling anxious about that, that is really a good sign that you need to work on yourself, because that means that there's not, it's, you know, there's a difference between that anxiety and grief, you know, because grief, you know, which would be kind of represented by either maybe the Three of Swords or the Five of Cups. Grief is different because it's something that, you know, is a natural result of something like that happening, rejection, you know, or the loss of a person that you care for very deeply for whatever reason. But it kind of has its own you know, course, and then it kind of dissipates eventually. But this is, we're talking about something where a person feels a certain, maybe even not just anxiety, but almost like, I have to be with this person, and why can't I? You know, frenzy, you know, is what I was going to say. So this doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be so big of a deal that you can't function. I don't want to give that impression. As a matter of fact, in the Rider-Waite deck, they show the person on a bedspread, and I wish I had it with, I do have a Rider-Waite deck, I just don't have it handy, because it's like there's flowers on the bedspread or something, and it's showing that the fears are kind of like unfounded or like kind of exaggerated, so the person is a little bit worried for no reason. So that it could be that you're making too much out of a certain situation also. And this could be an air sign person. So when I said that person could be a fire sign, that could just be your wariness, and actually the person was an air sign. So that would be Gemini, Libra, or Aquarius. In the air sign combo with Scorpio, I would think that one of the biggest sources of conflict is going to be that the Scorpio might accuse the air sign person of not caring deeply enough, or of being flirtatious or something like that, because they crave that intensity as proof that the person cares, and they don't have the same way of expressing themselves emotionally. Air signs do tend to be quite detached. Now, yeah, that's a generalization. There are going to be air signs, especially if they have a lot of water in their chart, that are going to be a lot more emotive. But this is just, in general, and then there's a sense of not understanding one another, and that creates some of that conflict. But what's coming in is the Three of Cups, or what is here in December, where it's going to be, and I think this is actually very healthy, that you are going to reach out to other people, maybe your social circle, maybe you've kind of abandoned some friends when you were very involved with a relationship, and now you're going to kind of reconnect with them. And there's a sense of lightheartedness in this, and the number 3, there's a sense of camaraderie. And because it's the cups, it can indicate socializing, but because it's an emotional thing, it's coming from an emotional place. So there is kind of like a levity about it. So that is really good, because these two cards can point to a lot more of an intense experience. And so it's very interesting how these kinds of things, it's like sometimes you have one area of life where things are very challenging, but then you have some good areas. And so that can be this could be finding comfort within your friendships. And actually, in terms of Scorpio, a lot of you guys are, it's not that you're lone wolves per se, like just totally, but you tend to be very comfortable being alone. So you're not the type of people that necessarily have to go out and always, socialize like that. You tend to be very private and into your own very close circle of people. And so that might have also been another bone of contention with, like, if it was an air sign, where they wanted to do a lot of outer stuff, and that was just not where you're at. So you can look at it as incompatibility if that was the case. Now the higher message, so this is a spiritual message in this situation, is the Four of Cups. Now traditionally, I have always interpreted this as something being very unsatisfying, dissatisfaction. And so in this particular context, I would say, well, really what, maybe your spirit guides, or just the spiritual lesson in all of this, is that you really were not happy in that situation. You were not feeling satisfied. And so even though the other person may have ended it, and you may have gone kicking and screaming, it really was something that you weren't happy about. And so because you're a fixed water sign, you kind of clung to an outworn situation, and yet it was the best thing for you. But I always am suspicious of any card that is interpreted in only one way, because obviously, especially with the general reading, there's so many people out there that it's not going to always apply. And so I would add that the Four of Cups can also talk about stability in love. And because the number 4 is all about stability. So it could be that, you know, the person that you had been with was not a stable person. And so I don't know why. The first thing I thought of was Gemini, if it was an air sign. Gemini is a very flirtatious sign. And it's also very changeable, mercurial, you know, fickle, all those things because of it being a mutable sign. So that would have not been a good matchup anyway. Nobody likes to be the one that is left, but by the same token, sometimes it's the best thing that could have happened to you. So just look at it like that, if that applies to you. And I'm always, you know, I'm always happy when I hear from you guys about some of the details that I mentioned being applicable to your lives. I mean, it really does, you know, make me feel good to know that some of these cards are reflecting what's actually happening for you. Because sometimes I think, wow, I'm really going off on a limb here. I don't know if anybody's going to feel that this is, you know, reflecting their life at all. But the card that crosses you is the Ten of Swords. So this could really be, you know, you probably know the drill on this one. This is a real feeling of being betrayed, of being stabbed in the back, you know. And in the you know, since it's crossing you, it can be that you have a hard time moving on, you know, from that feeling of whatever happened. And then, you know, when we talk about the air sign person, if it's an air sign person, you may have a hard time moving on from that. And it's interesting too when people like Scorpio, you know, find themselves attracted to a sign like Aquarius, you know, another air sign, because it's so different. And sometimes I think that, you know, the attraction is part of because you are so intense that you crave a balance. Maybe there's something very appealing about somebody who is very dry and very, you know, unemotional. And what's nice about Aquarius, a sign like Aquarius, is that, you know, they really are tolerant. They really enjoy people from different walks of life. So they wouldn't judge a Scorpio person from being emo, if that's how you are. They would be very, you know, accepting of that and just say, well, that's how this person is. And yet other signs are not necessarily going to be that broad-minded. But, you know, Aquarius is a fixed sign just like Scorpio. So, you know, they can get their, when they get riled up about something, they can kind of, you know, cling to their ideas and be quite, you know, immovable, really. And so when an Aquarian and a Scorpio get together, they can butt heads in that sense because both of them dig in their heels. No, I'm not going to do this. It's not that they want to control each other, but they don't want the other person to tell them how to live. And so that can create that kind of dynamic where both of them are stubborn and nothing ever gets resolved because they're not willing to give in. So, you know, how do you get over something? Well, you know, there are different ways, obviously, and if you really feel like you can't, you know, get going by doing something yourself, like, you know, for instance, meditating or saying positive affirmations, you know, whatever it is that you could do on your own. You may know about tapping, which is the emotional freedom technique, and they actually have free tutorials on that. EFT, just look that up, and then maybe you could do tapping for, you know, breaking the emotional attachment to a relationship. But if you really feel still stuck, you know, you can always, you know, try to contact an energy healer. If you feel like you can't afford that right now, sometimes they'll have like free Reiki clinics. Just Google it for your area. You know, do whatever it takes to kind of break those ties, including, you know, not feeding into it by, you know, stalking them on Facebook, you know. I mean, it's tempting to kind of keep tabs on somebody that you've broken up with, but obviously it prevents you from moving on because you're, you know, you're kind of still investing that energy in that person, even though you're not in the relationship. So the advice or the action to take is the Page of Pentacles. Now, as I said, you know, the first week of December, there is going to be you have Venus in that third house. Now, the third house would go along with this because it deals with messages. Okay, so maybe that will kind of mirror that. But also, at the end of the month, we're going to have the new moon in Capricorn, and that will be in that third house as well. So maybe that's what the Page of Pentacles is kind of showing, is some sort of new beginning in that area, and it could have to do with somebody that you meet maybe at the beginning of December. So that would be really cool. And of course the sun goes into this house as well around the 21st or the 22nd. I'm not sure this year what it's going to be, but then it will be in that house too in the latter week of the month. So that could be very beneficial for any kind of romance that has to do with some kind of internet situation, or just exchanging phone calls. Maybe somebody calls you out of the blue. Maybe it's somebody that was from your past even. And, you know, here we go again. Speaking of communications from the past, we are going to have a Mercury retrograde in December. And I think it's around the 17th. I'm not sure. I don't have my ephemeris out right now. So, again, sometimes we hear from others. I don't know if it's going to be, could be in your third house. I'm not sure. Because I don't know if it's going to be in Sagittarius or Capricorn, so I can't really say about that. But even so, I mean, sometimes when there are Mercury retrogrades, you hear from people from your past. And the outcome is the Queen of Wands. So for those of you Scorpios who are really wanting to have a relationship, and, you know, I am dealing with a lot of women, so the Queen does represent the female, or the feminine goddess energy, or the divine feminine. But you have that Wands, so there's a masculine side to it. This is a card of somebody of supreme confidence. Now, what is so interesting as a contrast to this Nine of Wands is that a lot of times people think that when they have a wall up, that they are somehow showing strength, you know, because this is actually the person, you know, the fortress, he's guarding that, and there's that tendency to see that as somebody who is, you know, guarding the gates, you know. But in love, we have to be fearless. And we have to be open, right? And we have to risk sometimes. And so the Queen of Wands is somebody, this is going to be like a fiery energy. I think it may be associated with Sagittarius, not 100% on that. But so maybe there's going to be a Sagittarian involved. As I had stated earlier, there may have been somebody around in the past. I was thinking maybe that an air sign person was actually, so, you know, even like going back to this, maybe there used to be an air sign and now there's a fire sign in the picture. But we also have possible earth sign energy coming in here. So basically, this is about being confident and cheerful, okay? And if you have been in a state of, you know, your stomach tied in knots, that may be a hard thing to even contemplate becoming, because you may feel very, very, you know, worn out. But you know, I feel like you're going to be in that. It's not going to be that you have to become that. I think that you will start to become that way because you will probably be dealing with somebody who is more compatible with you, who doesn't leave you feeling like meh, you know, I'm not really feeling this. And that is how you may have felt in the past with a relationship. And this is, anytime that you see wands, you're seeing something that is showing enthusiasm and a zest for living. So I feel like, you know, you may start out December with a lot of kind of heavy emotions, but you're going to end feeling really optimistic for your future. And, you know, it comes at a time when we have holidays, and so there might be even like festive, you know, feelings. And maybe, you know, to be honest with you, maybe you meet somebody in a social situation as well. That's always a possibility. So Scorpio, I hope you enjoyed this. If you would like a private reading, please click on the link below. I did, you know, launch a new website, and I'm, you know, I had, I changed companies, so it's different from my previous couple months ago, what I have posted there. So please, you know, go to this link instead for any kind of inquiries or what have you. But thank you very much for watching, and have a great December. Bye.